Treachery, delicious donuts, and a little less delicious golden shower. Let's learn the fun-sized story of Qin Hui and his poor, poor statue. History, or a collective memory as we commonly understand it, can be a capricious thing, my friends. As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. The same goes for historical figures. One person's hero is another person's villain extraordinaire. A quote gets taken out of context, an event gets left up to interpretation, and suddenly you're infamous for all time due to a misunderstanding. One good example, Thomas Crapper, the sanitation genius and early innovator of the toilet, would probably be appalled to learn that now we use his last name as slang for the waste that gets deposited into the invention that he improved upon. Technically, the word crap for poop appeared when Crapper was 10 years old, and it might all just be one big coincidence, but it probably didn't help that in later decades, Thomas Crapper stamped his name all over his toilet features. A story for another day. This brings us to one of ancient China's greatest heroes, Yue Fei, a general of the Song dynasty in the 1100s AD, and his arch-nemesis, Qin Hui. Yue Fei has been glorified for centuries, whereas Qin Hui's name has been dragged through the mud. Yet, when we delve into the facts, we might start to question Qin Hui's default crappiness. You know I had to. The story goes like this. In this time period, a nomadic tribe from the north, the Jurchens, invaded China and forced the ruling Song dynasty to set up shop in the south. The Emperor Gaozhong relied on a general of humble origins, Yue Fei, to defend the realm. And Yue Fei won victory after victory against the Jurchens, even once defending a city with 800 men against an army of 500,000. When Yue Fei gained the upper hand and was at the point of decimating the Jurchens, Gaozhong, relying on the counsel of his chancellor Qin Hui, ordered Yue Fei not to pursue the Jurchens, and instead the emperor started seeking peace. Yue Fei disregarded orders, continued to fight, and when he was finally forced to stand down, he wept, lamenting 10 years of work wasted. Qin Hui, recognizing that Yue Fei was becoming an obstacle to peace, had him imprisoned on trumped-up charges and poisoned in jail. The story in and of itself is fairly common. Many legendary generals have defended their homelands against overwhelming odds. However, this is a textbook case of the creation of a national hero. Soon after Yue Fei's death, a new emperor rehabilitated his image, starting a process that would continue for hundreds of years, with writers adding more and more to Yue Fei's legend. And of course, to Qin Hui's infamy. You have to remember, history is always written with a point of view, and this can manifest as everything from slight bias to serious propaganda. These later Chinese historians clearly had an agenda. That agenda? Number 1, use Yue Fei as an example of supreme loyalty to be followed. Number 2, paint Yue Fei as a badass mofo, creating something akin to an ancient Marvel superhero to be idolized. Yue Fei's young life has always been portrayed as the stuff of legends. As a small boy, he was uncannily strong, able to string a crossbow before he was an adult. For those of you who don't regularly string crossbows, it's friggin' hard, okay? Also, he was said to have a large tattoo on his back, which read, "Serve the country with utmost loyalty." The tattoo artist? His mom. Dope. This was only the first example of his die-hard loyalty to his native land. His war biography is cited as even more evidence. He was said to have forbidden his armies from pillaging the countryside. Good guy, Yue Fei. Later in prison, Qin Hui bribed him to stop attacking the Jurchens, and he refused when other generals accepted, knowing this would result in his execution. Meanwhile, Qin Hui is the personification of evil in these accounts, wheeling and dealing, trying to preserve his power, and ultimately condemning an innocent man to death on false charges. Now, if you're thinking that something doesn't quite add up, you're using your old critical thinking noggin. How is Yue Fei loyal if he disobeyed orders? Why is Qin Hui the bad guy if he just wanted peace? And what is up with the goddamn tattoo? Serve the country with the utmost loyalty? That sounds like a douchey frat bro tattoo. And it's in Chinese characters. There's a lot more to these two individuals that can be covered here, and let me be clear, this is strictly my own perspective. Since most written sources were written hundreds of years after these events, the truth can be cloudy. But as always, there is an important lesson. When a nation requires its people to act a certain way, creating an example to be followed is always more effective than coercion. Like, say, the myth of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree and then telling the truth. There's always a moral. For example, a good American doesn't lie. Or in Yue Fei's case, a good Chinese person is loyal to the country above all else. And if you thought Qin Hui had it bad enough, it's just so much worse. Once the new emperor decided that Yue Fei was a good guy after all, Qin Hui's reputation was toast. Speaking of toast, One cultural relic of this story is Yao Jiaguai, a Chinese donut-style delicacy that translates as deep-fried ghost. The name refers to Qin Hui and his wife, two pieces of connected pastry that will forever be dunked in boiling oil. Even worse, a massive tomb complex was created in honor of Yue Fei, where later several statues cast out of iron were placed. Human figures set to kneel in deference to Yue Fei for eternity. Two of these figures represent Qin Hui and his wife, and over the years, these statues have needed to be periodically replaced, the last time being 1979. Each time this is due to decades of wear and tear from large quantities of spit and urine showered upon these villains by real patriots showing their disgust. Jeez. So remember, history isn't just dates and the occasional pee on a statue. It's a story of you and me, just in different circumstances. One big soap opera, and we should learn it that way. Remember to follow me on Instagram, join the conversation on Reddit, and consider becoming a patron so I can start upping the quality of these videos. Thanks!